You bought this high-rise condo just to live with me. That's quite the choice. Well, I guess I can't say no. I'll live with you then. Great. Stop sulking and let's start getting along, all three of us from today. What on earth are they talking about? The people in front of me are my ex-husband and former mother-in-law. Yes, we've been divorced for a while now. My former mother-in-law, who claims she did it all for me, is incredibly self-centered. She never cared how I felt and always dumped the cooking and cleaning on me. My ex-husband, probably because of how he was raised, is just as self-absorbed. That's why I chose to divorce. I moved without telling them my new address, and yet here they are at my new place. Soon, I find out a surprising fact. My name is Madison. I'm a 34-year-old career woman. I've been with the same company since graduation, working in the sales department. I've been excelling and now lead several projects. I got so immersed in work that years went by without thinking about marriage or boyfriends. I found joy in my success and saved up my salary and bonuses. Before I knew it, I was over 30, but neither my parents nor I minded because I was thoroughly enjoying my life. Then, a certain encounter changed my life. I attended a college reunion and ran into Steve, who was in the same seminar as me back in the day. We hadn't talked much during college, but at the reunion we discovered we were working for companies that do business with each other. Steve was in legal affairs for a top-tier company. We started talking about work, training juniors, and then our personal lives. We found we had a lot in common. Steve and I began meeting alone from that day on and eventually started dating. During our relationship, Steve was very kind and a great listener, which comforted me and gave me extra motivation to work harder. Less than 6 months into the relationship, we decided to get married. My colleagues, friends, and even my parents were surprised to hear about a workaholic like me getting married, but they all celebrated us heartily at a small chapel wedding. I never imagined myself in a wedding dress even months before, but the peak of this marital happiness was on the wedding day itself. With little experience in love, I had naive dreams about married life, but the reality was brutal. On a certain day off, I fell ill and was bedridden. Steve did show concern, saying, "Just rest. I'm hungry, though. I'll be in the living room playing games." He left the bedroom after saying that. I felt something was off, but with my dizziness and headache, I just lay there. As I was dozing off, my phone rang. "Mom, what's up?" No, I'm okay." It was a call from my mother-in-law. "Madison isn't feeling well." I could hear Steve's voice all the way in the bedroom. "Oh, is that so? Don't worry. I'll tell her to get up right away. Yes, I'll wait." It seemed my mother-in-law was coming to visit. Despite talking about my health, she was planning to visit, and Steve was okay with it. He even said he would wake me up. I could get up if I pushed myself, but I wanted to rest and recover on this day off. Despite my wife, Madison, feeling unwell, I could only feel sadness at Steve's behavior for accepting a visit. "Madison, get up quick. Mom's going to come over soon. She said it'll be just for a little while, and it'd be pitiful to send her away. Show your face to Mom, too. You're free anyway, right?" "Didn't I say I'm not feeling well and want to stay in bed?" "It'll be all right. It's just for a bit." What's all right about this situation? Even so, if my mother-in-law is coming over, it's not like I, as her daughter-in-law, can stay in bed. I had been bedridden since the morning, so no cleaning had been done. Last night's dinner mess, the cluttered living room, and even the laundry had been left untouched. Steve never lifts a finger to help with the housework. Somehow I managed to get up and did the cleaning and tidying in the 1 hour before my mother-in-law arrived. All the while, Steve just continued playing his games unfazed. It's quicker to do it myself than to be hindered by his half-hearted help, but I wish he had at least shown the gesture of offering to help. By the time I had done the bare minimum cleaning and gotten myself ready, the mother-in-law arrived. Steve greeted her cheerfully. "Mom wants tea. It's almost lunchtime, so could you take care of lunch for me and Mom? You're going to eat, right, Mom? Yes, I'll have some. I brought your favorite strawberry cake for dessert, so let's eat it together. And just like that, no consideration was given for how I was feeling. The conversation between my husband and mother-in-law unfolded as if I wasn't there, and I sat beside them enduring a headache and dizziness. In the end, the mother-in-law didn't leave even by evening, so she stayed for dinner too. I started preparing without showing any irritation. Finally, after she left for an appointment with her friends in the evening, I collapsed into bed without exchanging a word with Steve or cleaning up. Originally, Steve always put his mother first and often prioritized her wishes. Since his father had already passed away, he would say, "I'm worried about Mom. She must be lonely," and frequently visit her place. He also never missed an opportunity to give her gifts with each season. At first, I thought it was sweet how he cared for his mother, but I was mistaken. His mother was always his top priority. Her word was law, and the number of nights he spent at her place just kept increasing. It was always about Mom for Mom with Mom. Whatever it was all about Mom. Yes, Steve was what you'd call a mama's boy. Comparing me with his mother became the norm. Moreover, every time they went out, it was always to his mother's house. Just 6 months into our marriage, my husband was already neglecting me, spending all his free time with his mother. His mother seemed to adore her son excessively, and though I had dreamed of a happy married life, I soon found myself increasingly alone as her presence loomed larger. There was a reason why the mother-in-law couldn't let go of her son: money. She had a significant spending problem. It wasn't just coffee or outings with friends. She spent money on travels and brand-name shopping sprees. Because of this, she frequently hit up Steve for money. "This month I only need $2,000, she'd say without a hint of shame, and Steve would always hand it over without hesitation. Then her requests for money started affecting me too. "Madison, I need you to prepare $4,000 by tomorrow." "What? What do you need $4,000 for?" "I'm going on a trip next month, so I'm counting on you." I was shocked by a demand I'd never even gotten from my own parents. Raised with strict rules about lending and borrowing money, I was utterly taken aback by her assumption that not paying back was the norm. "That's impossible. I refuse." I didn't give her a single penny. "It's not like I'm asking you for a gift. Don't be so stingy." "Fine. Steve will give it to me." Every time she asked, Steve would just give in. That's why she doted on him so much. Mom's in trouble. It's only natural to help her out a bit. That was Steve's response whenever I brought it up. Steve earns a pretty penny. I'd say we're both working, so each month we pitch in a set amount and manage our own money. Beyond that, I have no clue how much Steve saves or what he spends it on. But the couple hundred his mom was asking for has ballooned into a couple thousand. There might be financial dealings happening that I don't know about. At this rate, it could start affecting our household finances. "Hey, Steve, don't you think we should increase our savings each month considering the future for the kids we might have, and eventually I'd like us to buy our own house?" If I had that kind of money, I'd give it to my mom. "Madison, you should chip in and help my mom out each month too." That was his reply. I bet he isn't saving a dime. When I show up at my in-laws to my mother-in-law, I'm just a maid who works for free. The house my father-in-law left behind is quite impressive and spacious. I'm tasked with everything from cooking, cleaning to gardening and window washing. Still, being married, I complied without complaining. "Madison, I'm really sorry to ask this of you every time. I just can't clean anymore since my legs have gotten weak." The woman who gallivants daily, what is she even saying? I smiled politely at my mother-in-law while muttering this in my heart. She just enjoys bossing me around. My oblivious husband neither helps me nor does he see the need to, believing instead that his mother is toughening me up to be a good wife, thinking she's incredible for it. Then Steve said something unbelievable. It seems like Madison's mom didn't have much time to take care of her. Show her how to clean and cook. Will you teach her the ropes? Sure. My folks managed a rice mill in our hometown and stayed occupied daily. Yet, amidst their hustle, Mom consistently carved out time for me, and Dad did too. Despite being an only child, they didn't press me into helping out. Instead, they encouraged me to play and follow my passions. Kids aren't meant for labor. Pursue your passions was their mantra. Quite the departure from my mother-in-law's perspective. Eventually, I confronted Steve, not just for my parents, who shed tears of joy at our wedding, but also for myself. What do you mean? My mom always looked after me well. Don't you find fault in what your mom is suggesting? Can someone who's too frail to clean go out and travel every day? She's just shoving her housework onto me. I refuse to do your family's chores anymore. I don't want to come here again. However, the response I got from Steve was filled with anger. How can you say such awful things about my mom? She's just trying to make you into a proper wife. You're demonizing her without a shred of gratitude. If you're going to talk like that, we might as well get a divorce. With that, Steve, to my shock, pulled out a divorce paper from his bag. He filled it out and threw it at me. How about that? I'm serious. If you apologize to me and my mom, maybe I'll forgive you. If you don't want to get divorced, apologize right now. That's right. You'd be the one in trouble if Steve left you. Apologize now. He's rooted in old-fashioned values. In his world, a wife is below her husband and mother-in-law, expected to obey their every command. Standing up to one's husband is unthinkable. He assumes that threatening divorce will make a wife beg with tears and apologize. But I was certain this marriage was no longer bringing me happiness, nor was it going to get any better. Seeing me silent, Steve smirked and tucked the divorce paper back into his bag. Reflect on this while I'm away on my business trip. The next day, as Steve left for his trip, he left the divorce paper on the table. I didn't waste any time. I signed my name and ran to the courthouse to file it right away. Then I called my job and took some urgent personal days to start reverting to my maiden name and sorting out my affairs. I wanted to wrap up as much as possible while Steve was away. On the day the divorce was finalized, Steve came home. I've already filed for divorce, I said when I handed him the envelope from the city hall. His face turned bright red with anger, and he yelled, "Do you really want to put us through all this trouble? Divorce isn't something you just do on a whim. Submitting a divorce paper just because you didn't get your way is beyond a joke. It's too much." It seemed like he thought I had filed for divorce on a mere whim. I decided to play along with his words. "Well, it's because you always prioritize your mom over me. I'm never a part of the conversation, even when we're all together. I'm always alone, feeling lonely. Why do you exclude me?" Although I was only pretending to sulk, it seemed to have an effect on him. He loves it when women appear to be needy towards him. Despite the audacity of my act, I must have seemed like a seasoned actress to him. My husband, completely led on by my performance, cheerfully agreed to a financial settlement that was to my advantage. He thinks that after I've calmed down, we can just get remarried and return to our old life. But my feelings for him are gone. I divorced him to take care of myself. There's no going back to life with him. Regarding the usually troublesome matter of the financial settlement in a divorce, my husband didn't argue and let it end in my favor. Once everything was settled, I left the house. While I was looking for a new place, I fell in love with a high-rise condo near my workplace and decided to buy it after much deliberation. It's a new start in life. I wanted a bit of luxury in my home so I could enjoy my time alone, which is exactly what I'm doing now. After a day at work, I come home to my own space with no one to take care of or accommodate. I've taken up my old hobby of knitting. I brew my favorite tea and knit before bed, which is a truly relaxing and enjoyable time. Then one day my ex-husband and former mother-in-law showed up at my condo. Of course, I hadn't given them my address. I couldn't find the right words over the intercom and remained silent as my mother-in-law caused a scene at the entrance, calling out my name. To avoid bothering my neighbors, I reluctantly let them in through the front door. "How did you know where I live?" "Oh, we hired a private investigator. Forgot to ask you where you moved. We were worried about how you were doing and Mom had it looked into," he said, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. After a divorce, there's no way I would tell them where I moved, yet here they were, using a private investigator to intrude upon me. I felt a chill down my spine. I was desperately thinking about how to get rid of this parent and child. The mother, acting like a young girl despite her age, was shamelessly peering into my house, craning her neck and squatting to get a better look. Just as I was about to scold her, she blurted out something unexpected. "It's not as shabby as I thought. Did you buy this high-rise apartment to live with me? You chose a nicer place than I expected. Well, I guess I'll have to move in with you." "Great. No more sulking from today on. We'll all live together happily." My ex-husband chimed in with a grin. What? What is she talking about? Move in here." I was dumbstruck. The idea that they were proposing to live with me hadn't crossed my mind, and I couldn't understand why they would say such a thing. I was left pondering how to respond. The smile on my mother-in-law's face was unnerving. Next to her, my ex-husband was smiling ear to ear. That's the best choice indeed. He found himself agreeing with my mother-in-law's opinion. "Madison, it must be lonely to live here all by yourself forever, right? That's why I came with Mom today. I'll let bygones be bygones. I'll forgive you. You must have reflected on it, and from today on we'll live here, the three of us." My ex-husband proceeded with the conversation as if it was a done deal. The two of them looked at me as if it was a matter of course, but it was clear from their expressions that they were dismissing my wishes. My words didn't reach them at all. "I absolutely refuse. Please leave immediately. I don't mind if you never forgive me. You are now strangers to me. Our ties have been severed. Please do not come back again," I responded firmly. My ex-husband was taken aback, likely expecting me to readily agree. "What? Why? You're serious? You bought this place wanting to live with Mom, didn't you? Don't say such things, please. And here I thought I was doing this for your sake." They must have been expecting a completely different reaction. They couldn't hide their surprise at my rejection. "Whatever misunderstandings you have, I don't know, but I bought this condo for myself. Please stop with your arbitrary interpretations," I said. "I'm saying I'll forgive you." It seemed in my ex-husband's mind I was still being stubborn just to cause them trouble. He began to show an arrogant attitude, as if he was doing me a favor by forgiving me. "If things stay like this, you'll end up living alone here for the rest of your life, with neither me nor Mom around, you know. You're going to be all by yourself forever." "Yes, that's what I want. You're not welcome in my home. Please leave. We are no longer family. The relationship is over. Over. Don't ever come back." I stated clearly, but it seemed not to penetrate my ex-husband's understanding. He must have thought I was too stubborn to back down. His actions were self-serving, twisting the situation to his liking without attempting to understand my words. He scoffed at my words, and when I tried to close the door, he pushed past me to enter the house. Being pushed by my ex-husband, a man, I was helpless and fell into the hallway. "Ah!" I let out an unexpected loud scream. After a while, a neighbor opened their door. Realizing this, my ex-husband and his mother tried to hurry inside the house with a puzzled look. I pleaded to the neighbor, "Please call the police." Hey, what are you saying? For me, this was trespassing. I called 911 myself. Come quickly, please. Because the call came from the same location, the police car arrived promptly. Come in. The neighbor, to protect me from my ex-husband, kindly let me into the entrance and locked the door. Are you okay? They asked me gently. My ex-husband banged on the door violently, shouting, No, it's not like that. I'm the husband. I just came to visit my wife. My mother-in-law was also raging in the hallway. Hey, don't touch Mom. Madison, say something. It's because you wouldn't even give us your address that we had to go digging around for it. Oh, you. Not only did you tarnish my son's reputation, but you had to treat me this terribly too. What a terrible daughter-in-law you are. Apologize right now. The incredible volume of their voices echoed down the hallway. Given that it was a weekend morning, it's likely that many residents were home. One by one, doors began to open, and the commotion escalated to the point where onlookers started to emerge. Fortunately for me, though I was new to this apartment complex, I always made sure to attend the meetings and was known for being considerate despite my youth. I had already established a relationship of trust with the other residents. Despite the disturbance caused by my ex-husband's sudden appearance, I wasn't shunned. Instead, everyone was kind, asking if I was all right and if I needed help. Just give them a shout. Based on testimonies from neighbors and other local residents, my ex and his mom were taken away by the police for trespassing. The neighbor, who I had asked to call the police, despite being inconvenienced, said, I work in the legal field, so I know a lawyer who's an expert on stalking. I'll introduce you, and he did just that. Come to think of it, my ex-husband used to work in legal affairs too, but he seems completely oblivious to the laws he's breaking. I bet he'll never realize it. A few weeks after the incident, an old friend from college reached out to me. She said she saw my ex-husband walking happily with a young child. It was a message asking when he had the kid. Since I hadn't informed her of my divorce, she assumed the child was mine. It hasn't been that long since the debacle. Could it be that my husband, who was supposed to be reconciling with me, has found a new lover already? That's his prerogative, and it has nothing to do with me. If he has a new lover, perhaps his obsession with me will fade. But a young child that snagged my attention. Would my mother-in-law ever approve of a romance with a woman who already has children? I asked my attorney to conduct additional investigations to uncover his background. A reputable detective agency, arranged through the law firm, took on the task of investigating my ex. Then I was informed of the shocking result. My ex had been cheating on me long before our divorce. Though my feelings for him had long since vanished, I never imagined that he had been betraying me from the start. I thought all the weekends he spent with his mother, staying at his parents' house, leaving our home empty, were for family obligations. I was told so, and seeing how his mother acted, I had no reason to doubt it. But in reality, he was probably going to see his mistress. I could feel my heart in turmoil. To my ex-husband, all women are inferior to him, except for his mother, who reigns supreme in his life. He thinks it's okay to ridicule or scorn any other woman, including me. While having a wife, the act of cheating, as well as convincing himself it's only right to get back together with his divorced wife, stems from him painting things in a light that suits him. Even as he's pressuring me for reconciliation, he's still seeing his mistress. In his mind, this situation makes perfect sense. As I pore over the investigative report, it indicates that despite having no intention of marrying, he's been leading his mistress on with talks of a future. He's been keeping her hopeful to maintain their affair. And then there's the young child he was seen walking with, the legitimate child of my ex-husband, born by his mistress. Yes, he had two families. The child was born around the time he and I were married unaware of anything. The report made me feel more nauseous than sad or angry. Following my attorney's advice, I immediately switched to filing for damages due to the affair. If it's within 3 years of discovering the infidelity, one can file a suit. There's no time to wallow in sadness or anger. My feelings for him are long gone. I can't afford to waste any more time on such a person. I mechanically proceed with the preparation for the appeal. Simultaneously, I'm suing the mistress for damages due to her infidelity. Upon learning of my ex-husband's mindset, who hasn't given up on reconciling with me while still implying marriage to his mistress, Emily is furious. I'll sue for marriage fraud. He'll never see the child again. But just hinting at marriage is unlikely enough for a lawsuit, I thought. I'd probably end up just crying myself to sleep, but to my surprise, it turned out he had taken a significant amount of money from Emily, claiming it was for their wedding fund. And of course, the money ended up with my mother-in-law. Her spending habits are out of control, her demands ever escalating. Steve was trying to appease his mother, who was upset with the complications between us, by granting her the dream of an overseas trip on a luxury cruise ship. He reserved the best room and had also booked the most luxurious hotel. The money he had received from Emily was used to cover those expenses. Once she learned this, Emily managed to bring about a legal case. I'm claiming damages for the affair, child support payments, and now he's being charged with fraud. My ex, who was always begging his mother for money, had no savings. He incurred a substantial debt. Their grand family home was seized, and yet his debts only grew. He paid me my damages in one lump sum, and now we are entirely estranged. However, the situation between Emily and my ex is slightly different. Because they have a young child together, he had agreed to pay child support every month, but those payments soon fell behind. Enraged, Emily stormed into his workplace, revealing everything. Despite dealing with legal issues, he was causing trouble with women at work, and amidst a fraud trial, he had kept this hidden from his company. When Emily burst in, everyone found out, and he was quickly shunted aside to a less important position. Unable to stand the whispers, he resigned on his own. With debt repayment and child support looming, he desperately looked for a new job, but found that his reputation in the industry, now tainted with fraud charges, made it impossible even to get an interview. Realizing he can't be picky, he's now juggling 3 demanding physical labor jobs, working himself to the bone with barely any sleep. As for his mother, seeing her son sued and jobless with a mountain of debt, she vanished. To avoid getting involved, his mother abandoned him and disappeared. My ex-husband is on the brink of despair. Of course, his mother's story isn't over. Unable to curb her spending, she too has racked up considerable debt. Without a home, she's found herself borrowing easily but facing harsh repayment conditions. Soon falling behind, she's now working tirelessly, constantly under the watchful eye of some unsavory characters. Meanwhile, I'm diving into my job as a sales manager, taking on new projects. I'm achieving groundbreaking results, and now with a life of my own, I can even make time to study. My growing expertise has earned the trust of clients and boosted company sales. I've been promoted as the first female executive here, and there's even talk of me climbing higher. I'm not letting it get to my head, though. I'm working hard and focusing on contributing to the company. Now that I'm single, my girlfriends have been setting me up on blind dates, but I'm turning them all down. I want to focus on my hobbies and studies. It's my life, and I want to spend it doing what I love, living proudly. I do hope to meet someone special someday, someone with whom I can share mutual respect. For now, I'll keep that hope tucked away in my heart.
The sun greeted me warmly that morning, a rare treat after weeks of dreary weather. My hands, wrapped around a steaming cup of coffee, were still as I stood in the garden, admiring the newly blossomed roses. It was a perfect holiday morning, serene and promising, until the peace was shattered by the sound of a car pulling up in the driveway. Richard, my husband of 10 years, stepped out of the car, followed closely by his sister Anna. They were an odd pair, Richard with his stern, lined face, and Anna, ever the carefree spirit, albeit with a cunning glint in her eyes. They were laden with bags, their arms straining under the weight. I set my cup down, a sense of unease creeping up my spine. "Richard, what's all this?" I asked, my voice steady despite the alarm bells ringing in my head. Richard's response was blunt, like a sledgehammer to my calm morning. "We're moving in with you from today," he declared, as Anna smirked beside him. I felt the ground shift beneath me. "What do you mean moving in? And why?" Anna's smirk widened. "If you don't like it, Helen, you can always divorce him and leave," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Before I could gather my wits to respond, they barged past me, their footsteps heavy against the wooden floor. My once tranquil living room was quickly cluttered with their belongings. I stood frozen, watching the invasion of my personal space, my sanctuary. Just then, Mia, Anna's 14-year-old daughter, entered the room. Her eyes, a mirror image of her mother's, were filled with apology. Unlike Anna, Mia had always been gentle, a flower struggling to bloom in the shadow of her mother's overpowering presence. I found my voice, albeit a whisper. "Is this really okay? I mean, with Mia and all?" Richard, who had been directing Anna on where to place her myriad of bags, stopped dead in his tracks. His face, usually an unreadable mask, turned pale. Without a word, he dashed out, his phone pressed against his ear. Anna, now left alone to face me, looked as if she might faint. The arrogance had vanished from her face, replaced by a dawning realization of something gone awry. "I can't wait for Richard to come back," I said, my voice stronger now. Anna flinched at my words. "Brace yourself, Anna. The real fight starts now." As I stood there, facing the chaos, a part of me wondered how my life had spiraled into this mess. I was Helen Davis, a 50-year-old accountant, living a life that was more a routine than an experience. My marriage to Richard, once a source of comfort, had become a suffocating trap. Richard and I met at a community event. He was a local businessman 10 years my senior, and I was a volunteer. We connected over shared interests, and before I knew it, we were married. It was a simple ceremony, Richard insisting that anything more was frivolous. From the start, Richard was a traditionalist. He believed in clear roles within a marriage, and unfortunately that meant I was relegated to the background, my opinions and desires secondary to his. "I'll handle the finances and decisions, you just make sure the house is in order," he would say, his tone final. I complied initially. I thought his dominance was a sign of his commitment and care. But as the years rolled by, the charming businessman I married revealed himself to be controlling and dismissive. Our home, once a haven of shared dreams and laughter, had turned into a silent battlefield. I would tiptoe around his moods and his commands, trying to keep the peace, but inside I was screaming for an escape, for a breath of fresh air. That morning, as I watched Anna spread her belongings across my living room, I felt a surge of anger. This was not just an invasion of space. It was a blatant disregard for my existence, my choices. And Richard, the man who had vowed to cherish and respect me, stood silently by, a spectator to his sister's audacity. Anna's eyes met mine, and for a moment I saw a flicker of fear. She knew she had crossed a line, but her arrogance was too ingrained to step back. She was like a parasite, feeding off Richard's affection and my tolerance. "I hope you're ready for the consequences, Anna," I said, my voice calm but firm. Her response was a scoff, but her eyes betrayed her. She knew she had awakened a dormant adversary, and as I stood there, amidst the chaos they had brought into my home, I realized that this was not just an invasion. It was a declaration of war. The sound of Richard's car pulling up again snapped me out of my thoughts. I braced myself for the confrontation, for the battle that was about to begin. The doors opened, and Richard stormed in, his face a mask of confusion and anger. "What's going on, Helen? Why is Anna panicking?" he demanded, his eyes darting between me and his sister. "This," I gestured to the mess around us, "is what your decision has led to. Your sister, your house, your rules. But not anymore, Richard. Not anymore." The room was thick with tension, the air heavy with unspoken words and suppressed emotions. Richard looked at me, then at Anna, and a realization dawned on him. He had underestimated me, taken my silence for submission. But as the sun streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow on the chaos, I knew this was just the beginning of my fight for freedom, for my voice. The shadows of retribution were finally lifting, and I was ready to step into the light. Richard's confusion melted into a frown, his eyes narrowing as he absorbed the scene before him. "Helen, this is temporary. Anna needs us," he said, his voice firm, leaving no room for argument. I scoffed. "Temporary? Richard, your sister has brought half her house here. And you," I turned to Anna, "you waltz in here as if you own the place." Anna rolled her eyes, a smirk playing on her lips. "Oh, come on, Helen. It's not like you use this space for anything important. Besides, Richard agrees with me, don't you, brother?" Richard nodded, his allegiance clear. "Anna's going through a tough time. We need to be there for her." I felt a surge of anger. "And what about me, Richard? When have you ever considered what I need?" Richard's expression hardened. "You have everything you need, Helen. A roof over your head, food on the table. What more do you want?" His words stung, and I felt a bitter laugh escape my lips. "I want a husband who sees me as an equal, not just a caretaker for his home and his burdensome sister." Anna snorted. "Equal? Please. You should be grateful Richard even married you. At your age, options aren't exactly lining up." Her words were like a slap in the face, but I stood my ground. "Grateful? For a marriage that suffocates me? For a husband who values his sister's whims over his wife's feelings?" Richard's face reddened, his anger boiling over. "Enough, Helen. You're overreacting. Anna is family." "And what am I?" I shot back, my voice trembling with emotion. "Just a convenient accessory to your life?" The room fell silent, the tension thick and suffocating. Richard and Anna exchanged a look, a silent conversation passing between them. I knew then that I was fighting a losing battle. Richard finally spoke, his voice cold. "Pack your things, Helen. If you can't accept my sister, you can't be part of this family." His words were a dagger to my heart, but I refused to let them see me break. "Fine," I said, my voice steady. "I'll leave. But remember this, Richard. I am not your property. I am a person, and I will not be dismissed so easily." I turned on my heel and walked to our bedroom, my mind racing. As I began packing my things, tears blurred my vision. I had given up so much for this marriage, only to be cast aside for Anna's selfishness. But amidst the hurt and betrayal, a fire ignited within me. I would not let them break me. I would fight back, and I would reclaim my life. As I zipped up my suitcase, I looked around the room that had been my sanctuary. It was time to leave, to start anew. But as I stepped out of the bedroom, suitcase in tow, I knew one thing for certain. This was not the end. It was just the beginning of my journey to retribution. The door slammed behind me as I left the house, my heart pounding with a mix of fear, anger, and a newfound determination. The crisp morning air was a sharp contrast to the stifling atmosphere I'd just escaped. I took a moment to steady my breath, realizing that this was the first step towards reclaiming my life. As I walked, the memories of the last few years played in my mind like a tragic movie. Richard, once my rock, had slowly morphed into an unrecognizable tyrant. His sister Anna always lurking in the shadows, influencing his decisions, undermining me at every turn. I found myself outside Mia's school, the realization hitting me that I hadn't said goodbye. Mia, the one ray of light in the otherwise dark canvas of my marriage. I saw her then, walking out of the school gates, her face a picture of innocence and youth. "Mia," I called out, my voice catching in my throat. She turned, her eyes lighting up when she saw me. "Helen, what are you doing here?" I knelt down to her level, my eyes searching hers. "Mia, I've left your uncle's house. Things have become too difficult." Her face fell, a frown marring her young features. "Is it because of Mom? Did she do something again?" I sighed, hating that she had to be exposed to her mother's toxic behavior. "Yes, Mia. Your mom and your uncle, they've made some decisions that I can't live with." Mia's eyes filled with tears, her voice barely a whisper. "I wish you could stay. You're the only one who listens to me, who cares about what I want." I hugged her, my heart breaking. "I care about you so much, Mia, and I promise I'll always be here for you, no matter what." We stood there for a moment, two souls united in our mutual pain. Finally, I pulled away, wiping her tears. "You need to be strong, Mia. Don't let them change who you are. You're a wonderful, kind-hearted girl, and I'm so proud of you." Mia nodded, a determined glint in her eyes. I will be, Helen, and I'll come to visit you wherever you are. As I watched her walk back into the school, a plan began to form in my mind. Richard and Anna had underestimated me, seen me as nothing more than a compliant wife, but I would show them. I would fight back, and I would make them pay for every tear, every moment of pain they had caused me. I walked away from the school, my steps more confident than before. The game had changed, and I was no longer just a pawn. I was a queen, ready to take back my kingdom. I found refuge in a small, unassuming cafe, the kind where strangers become confidants. As I sipped my coffee, the warmth of the mug seeped into my hands, mirroring the growing resolve in my heart. It was there, amidst the quiet hum of the cafe, that I began to piece together my plan. A sudden ring from my phone jolted me. It was Mia. "Helen, you need to come to Grandma's house. There's something you should know about Mom." The urgency in her voice was unmistakable. I paid for my coffee and hurried to the address she had given me. Arriving at the quaint house, I was greeted by Mia and her grandparents, Richard and Anna's parents. The air was heavy with tension as they ushered me into the living room. Mia's grandmother, a stern yet kind woman, wasted no time. "Helen, we've been blind for too long. Anna is in trouble, and it's far worse than we imagined." I sat, bracing myself for what was to come. Mia's grandfather, a man of few words, spoke up. "Anna's addicted to gambling. She's amassed a significant debt, and now she's targeting your home to settle it." The revelation hit me like a tidal wave. Anna's arrogance, her sudden move into our house, it all made sense now. Mia's grandmother continued, her voice laced with regret. "We've enabled her for too long, thinking we were helping. But we were wrong. We're cutting her off financially." I nodded, my mind racing with the implications. "And Richard? Does he know about this?" "He knows," Mia's grandfather said, his voice heavy with disappointment. "But he's too blinded by his need to protect Anna. He's part of the problem." The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, each one fueling my resolve. I stood up, my decision clear. I need to confront them. They need to know I'm aware of their deceit. Mia grabbed my hand, her eyes pleading. "Be careful, Helen. Mom can be unpredictable." I squeezed her hand, a smile tinged with determination. "Don't worry, Mia. I'm not the same person they think they can push around. It's time they see the real me." Leaving Mia's grandparents' house, I felt a strange cocktail of emotions. Anger, certainly, at the betrayal and deceit. But also empowerment, a sense of clarity and purpose I hadn't felt in years. I drove back to the house, each mile bringing me closer to a confrontation I never imagined I'd have the courage to face. But there I was, ready to stand up to the very people who had made my life a living hell. I entered the house without knocking, finding Richard and Anna in the living room. The sight of them, so complacent in their scheming, ignited a fire within me. "Richard, Anna, we need to talk," I announced, my voice steady and commanding. Richard looked up, surprise etched on his face. "Helen, what are you doing here?" "I know about Anna's gambling debts. I know she's planning to use this house to pay them off," I said, cutting straight to the heart of the matter. Anna's face contorted into a sneer. "What are you going to do about it, Helen? Cry and run away?" I met her gaze, unwavering. "No, Anna. I'm going to make sure you both pay for what you've done. To me, to this family." Richard's expression faltered, a hint of guilt flashing across his face. "Helen, Save it, Richard. I've heard enough of your excuses. You chose Anna over our marriage. Now you'll have to live with the consequences." Anna laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "You think you can scare us, Helen? You're nothing. You've always been nothing." Her words were meant to wound, but they only strengthened my resolve. "I may have been nothing to you, but that ends today. I'm taking back control of my life, and I'll start by making sure everyone knows the kind of people you really are." Richard stood up, a mix of anger and desperation in his eyes. "You wouldn't dare. You know how this will look, the scandal, the gossip." I cut him off, my voice cold. "I don't care about the gossip, Richard. I care about justice, about righting the wrongs you and your sister have committed." Anna's face turned pale, her bravado faltering. "You can't prove anything, Helen. It's your word against ours." I smiled, a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Oh, but I can, Anna. I've been collecting evidence, bank statements, gambling debts, everything. I have more than enough to prove your deceit." Richard's face drained of color. Helen, please, let's talk about this. We can sort it out. I shook my head. It's too late for talking, Richard. You made your choice, and now you'll have to face the consequences. As I turned to leave, I left them with one final statement. I'll be filing for divorce, Richard, and I'll make sure the truth about Anna's debts comes out. You've both played this game for far too long. Now, it's my turn. I walked out of the house, the sound of their panicked voices fading behind me. I had stepped into the battle, fully armed and ready. The game of deceit and betrayal they had been playing was over. It was time for retribution, and I was going to make sure they paid for every tear, every moment of suffering they had caused. The next few days were a whirlwind of legal consultations and covert planning. My lawyer, a sharp-witted woman named Diane, was a beacon of support, guiding me through the labyrinth of divorce proceedings. The day of the confrontation arrived like a storm. I stood outside the courthouse, my heart racing with a mix of dread and determination. Richard and Anna were already there, their faces masks of feigned innocence. As we were called in, I took a deep breath, readying myself for the battle ahead. The courtroom was cold and sterile, a stark contrast to the fiery emotions brewing inside me. Richard's lawyer was the first to speak, painting a picture of a harmonious marriage disrupted by my sudden and unreasonable demands. I listened, my fists clenched, as he spun lies as easily as a spider weaves its web. Then it was Diane's turn. She began methodically, laying out the facts with precision. Your Honor, the reality is starkly different from what has been presented by the defense. We have evidence of financial misconduct and emotional abuse, all perpetrated by Mr. Richard Davis and his sister, Ms. Anna Davis. Anna's eyes widened, her composure slipping. Richard shifted uncomfortably, his gaze avoiding mine. Diane continued, her voice steady and clear. We have bank statements showing large sums transferred to Miss Davis's account, coinciding with her gambling debts. We also have testimonies from witnesses who have observed the emotional abuse my client suffered in her marriage. Richard's lawyer tried to interject, but Diane was unyielding. Furthermore, we have evidence of a plan to sell the marital home without my client's consent to cover Miss Davis's debts. The judge looked over the documents Diane presented, his expression growing increasingly stern. Anna squirmed in her seat, her earlier arrogance replaced by a growing sense of panic. Then came the moment I had been waiting for. I was called to the stand, my heart pounding in my chest. I recounted the years of neglect, the emotional turmoil, and the final straw that broke the camel's back. Their plan to usurp my home. As I spoke, I kept my eyes on Richard and Anna. Richard's face was a picture of defeat, his eyes hollow and resigned. Anna, on the other hand, was seething, her hands clenched into tight fists. The judge finally spoke, his voice echoing in the silent courtroom. Based on the evidence presented, it's clear that there has been significant wrongdoing on the part of Mr. Davis and Ms. Davis. I am inclined to grant the divorce and rule in favor of the plaintiff, Miss Helen Davis. Anna erupted, her voice shrill with anger. This is nonsense. She's lying, all of it. Helen's just a bitter old woman who can't stand to see anyone else happy. Her outburst only served to cement the judge's decision. Order in the court, Miss Davis. Your behavior is only proving the plaintiff's point. I will not tolerate any more outbursts. The gavel came down, and with it, the final blow to Richard and Anna's facade. As we left the courtroom, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The truth had prevailed, and karma had served its course. The fallout from the courtroom was swift and unforgiving. News of Richard and Anna's deceit and the divorce spread through our social circles like wildfire. I watched, with a sense of detached vindication, as their reputations crumbled under the weight of their actions. Richard, once a respected businessman, found his clients and associates distancing themselves. Anna, too, faced her own downfall. The gambling dens she frequented now turned her away, her debts too high and her backers too few. But the true retribution came in the form of their parents' intervention. Mia's grandparents, having witnessed the extent of their children's misdeeds, took decisive action. They cut Anna off financially, a move that left her reeling and desperate. I met with Mia's grandparents a few days after the trial. They welcomed me with a warmth that was tinged with sadness. We should have seen it, Helen, Mia's grandmother lamented. We turned a blind eye for too long. Mia's grandfather nodded in agreement. We're taking responsibility now. Anna will have to learn to fend for herself. And as for Richard, he needs to understand the consequences of his choices. Their resolve was a balm to my wounded heart. They, too, had been victims of Richard and Anna's manipulation, and now they stood with me in seeking justice. The next chapter of retribution unfolded at the final divorce settlement meeting. Richard sat across from me, a shadow of the man he once was. His eyes were hollow, his defiance replaced by a quiet resignation. As the terms were laid out, I could see the realization dawn on him. He was losing everything. His home, a significant portion of his assets, and any semblance of dignity he had clung to. Anna, not present at the meeting, was dealt her blow through legal channels. She was required to undertake a debt repayment plan, a far cry from the lavish lifestyle she was accustomed to. As I signed the final papers, a sense of closure washed over me. I had come out of this battle scarred but victorious. Richard and Anna had been brought to justice, not just by the law, but by the karma of their own making. Leaving the meeting, I felt a lightness I hadn't experienced in years. I was free from the chains of a loveless marriage, free from the suffocating grip of Richard and Anna's deceit. I had lost much in this fight, but I had gained something far more valuable, my freedom and a chance to rebuild my life on my own terms. As I walked out into the sunlight, I felt a smile spread across my face. It was the smile of a woman who had faced her demons and emerged stronger. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I was looking forward to walking it. The days following the divorce were a mix of relief and rediscovery. I had stepped out of the shadow of my marriage, and now the world seemed different, more vibrant, and filled with possibilities. One afternoon, I found myself in a quaint bookstore, a place I had often passed but never entered during my marriage. As I browsed through the shelves, I felt a sense of peace. It was in these small moments I realized that life began to regain its color. The bell above the door chimed, and in walked Mia, her face brightening as she saw me. "Helen!" she exclaimed, rushing over. "I heard about the divorce being finalized. Are you okay?" I smiled, embracing her warmly. "I'm more than okay, Mia. I feel like I've been given a new lease on life." Her eyes sparkled with unshed tears. "I'm so happy for you, and I'm sorry for everything my mom and uncle put you through." "It's not your fault, Mia. You've been one of the few lights in my life these past few years," I reassured her. We sat down in a cozy corner of the bookstore, sipping tea from the little cafe inside. Mia shared her plans for college, her eyes alight with dreams and ambitions. I listened, my heart swelling with pride for the remarkable young woman she had become. Then Mia hesitated, her expression turning serious. "Helen, there's something else. My grandparents, they want to help you. They feel guilty about everything." I shook my head gently. "Mia, they've done enough. Just having their support during the trial meant the world to me." "But they insist. They want to give you a part of the money from the sale of the house. It's only fair," they said. The offer took me aback. Richard and Anna had been forced to sell the house to settle their debts, and now Mia's grandparents wanted to ensure I received my rightful share. After some thought, I accepted. Not for the money, but to honor the gesture of goodwill and closure from two people who had become like family to me. With this unexpected financial security, I began to rebuild my life. I found a small but charming apartment, decorated it to my taste, and for the first time, made a space that was truly mine. I also rekindled old friendships, ones that had dwindled under the weight of my unhappy marriage. My friends welcomed me back with open arms, their support a testament to the enduring nature of true friendship. As for Richard and Anna, they faded into the background of my life. Richard had moved to a different city, a shadow of his former self, and Anna, burdened by her debts and the loss of her family's support, had become a mere footnote in my story. One sunny afternoon, as I walked through the park, I realized something profound. In seeking revenge and justice, I had found something far more important: my own strength and resilience. The journey had been tumultuous, filled with pain and confrontation, but it had led me to a place of self-discovery and empowerment. I saw couples walking hand in hand, children laughing as they played, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel a pang of sadness or loss. I was content, at peace with my past and optimistic about my future. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the park, I reflected on the journey I had undertaken. The road to retribution had been paved with challenges, but it had also brought unexpected blessings. Friendships rekindled, a new sense of purpose, and a deeper understanding of my own resilience. I left the park with a light heart, ready to embrace whatever adventures lay ahead. The chapter of Richard and Anna was closed, but my story was far from over. It was a new beginning, a new chapter filled with hope, possibilities, and a newfound appreciation for the simple joys of life.